and this is the Brother Nature Farm in Detroit, Michigan. We're, I think, about an acre and a half. Not all of that is in farm production. We usually just focus on salad. You know, when you have a small amount of land, it's good to have something that regrows every week, and so most of our varieties are cut again. So you can cut the endive, you can even cut some of the leafy radicchio and cut the spinach in the cold months, and they grow right back for a few weeks, and that really helps with what we do. We also offer a salad mix that rarely has any lettuce in it. It'll have purslane, our favorite edible weed. It'll have edible flowers, a couple different kinds like the peas and the nasturtiums. And I think it's safe to say we've really helped to redefine what salad mix is in this city. It's more emphasizing the nutrient-dense greens and a nice selection of color and shapes in a salad, instead of just having like a crunchy romaine or something like that. So we also change it up based on what the season is. Spinach, in my opinion, shouldn't be grown in June and July and August and all of that. Its flavor is best in the cold months. Whereas, some of the stuff in the chicory family is great in the summertime. The endive, to me, is something that tastes better than romaine and is great in a Caesar salad. And so we're offering things that, to me, taste better, but are also like better for your body. But we do that at a pretty decent cost. We don't just sell to rich people. We have had our same prices since 2005, and I don't think too many people can say that. So a half pound of salad mix is $5, and it's always been $5 for us. And during the pandemic, things got a little difficult, but we don't just make our living off of salad. We do have an Airbnb, so people can stay on the farm. We don't put them to work, though. We also are the farm that helps to build other gardens and small farms for people in the city. We've learned a lot over the last almost 20 years of farming, like how to pull the concrete and the car parts, and how to deal with soil tests, and how to build up if the ground isn't safe underneath, and how to do things a little bit differently in the city, because growing food in a city can be very challenging, mostly because of soil testing and because of the clay and the rubble, because a lot of times that's what we're left with is clay and rubble. And so using large amounts of compost and using things like the two-bottom plow, which to me is like the best tool since like the 1800s or whenever it was invented, so we make our living off of the land, but often it's making room for other people to farm in the city as well. There's always been a really interesting crossover and synergy between restaurants and the market. Detroit's Eastern Market is a wonderful place for us to be in the shadow of, because we can take a truckload of our stuff there and sell it. They also have a grant program where the Eastern Market folks are selling in some of the smaller neighborhoods and out of the way places, and so they'll pay us to bag stuff up just for their little mini markets. And so it's a wonderful program for us to be able to sell extra to. But we also sell to a lot of restaurants, and I feel like over the last decade and a half, we've helped to change a lot of menus, because people, especially like some of the restaurants like that we've sold to over the years, like Mudgie's or Supino's Pizza and Chartreuse and Folk and a few other restaurants, they've actually done really interesting things with our salad. And so if you go to some of these restaurants, especially Chartreuse, you'll see really atypical things that you just wouldn't expect a salad to be like, and it really redefines like how people can use our product and how people could use their own garden produce too. And to me, that's like so important, because especially in Detroit, people have eaten just to fill themselves up. And I think it's a strange legacy from the factory days. People are just so exhausted, so they just eat to fill themselves up. But sometimes when I go to some of these restaurants and we see our greens on the menu and we see what they're doing with them, it really inspires us to come back and recreate or create new ways of eating salad and using our product, or create new ways of eating other things that, and to me that's like creating a small amount of change in the world in a strange way, because what we eat has ripple effects throughout the world, whether it's our carbon footprint or our economic footprint. And so eating local to me is so important because of those two things, but it's also so much better to eat something that's local instead of something that was sitting on a truck for 10 days and all that. So we're at this point now where pretty soon there's a group of black farmers that'll have a co-op this winter, and it's going to outcompete, in my opinion, it should outcompete Whole Foods. The Detroit Black Community Food Security Network is going to open their co-op on Woodward Avenue, and to me this is a very exciting time, because we're helping to change menus, we're helping to change people's food habits at Eastern Market, because about 30,000 people come through Eastern Market on a Saturday, right? And so a lot of people are exposed to something that's different beyond what we might have eaten as kids, and now we're not only going to be able to make those changes, but change the buying habits of people. Instead of going to the corporate grocery stores, there'll be other food options for people in the city, not just to have something closer in your food desert neighborhood or whatever, but something that's owned by the people who work there and by the members that support it and things like that. So we're super excited about that. And we're also just super excited to be able to, live off the land in the city in the 21st century. It's kind of strange, At 54 years old, one of the production challenges is me. But fortunately, we have a really good process that we've developed over the years of doing no-till. So we'll mow the old salad down, tarp it for a few weeks, use the tractor loader to just drop more compost on it and rake. And so that's been a game changer for us, instead of when I first started, almost 20 years ago, just tilling the soil, and then my wife, who went to MSU, explaining to me that I'm destroying the soil. So stopping all of that was huge, because now our soil is like this chocolate cake of all kinds of microorganisms and critters in there, and it's wonderful. The heat, I would say, is the biggest challenge to us, because every year I feel a little weaker and it feels a little hotter, and then you hear people saying there's no such thing as climate change, because we're still seeing snow and we're still seeing cold temperatures, and it's the extremes. It is the heat, but the wind is more aggressive, it seems, every year, and so having some of the hoop houses torn apart, which happened a couple times. But in terms of the weed pressure, I think we're doing really well. In terms of adapting, we have a few miles to go with adapting to climate change, and so one of those things is to just create more of a windbreak. But I can't create a windbreak with a hedge, because we have to keep track of weeds, and we have to. So it's more of a grassy or clover berm that we're going to do, but we have to protect ourselves from the wind. We have to protect ourselves from the shade, which is why we have a shade tarp system out here. But I think that's probably the biggest thing. There are pests and all that, but when your crops are only out there for a few weeks at a time with the Agribon row cover, and our customers are very forgiving. They know there's going to be some bug bites on it, And so we're very fortunate to just grow something that's only going to be exposed to the diamondback moth and the flea beetle and even some like slugs for a couple weeks. And so we're able to just get them in and out before too much damage is done, and then we are constantly rearranging the furniture on the bugs, you know. So different rows of arugula and mizuna, which are like the things that the moths and the flea beetles love the most, are constantly being hidden by companion planting around bigger things like endive and radicchio and other crops. So, and we're still learning. I mean, that's a whole rabbit hole to go down, and it's so fascinating to me. It's even more fascinating that people want to listen to me talk about companion planting, because it's I feel like such a nerd sometimes. But the companion planting setup is almost like you have an infinite amount of possibilities that you could use, whether it's something like cilantro, which sometimes we sell, something like basil, and you just, wherever possible, you hide something in there. I think we did a really good job with the cucumbers that were being surrounded initially in the spring, the late spring, by the flowering peas, instead of like the peas for edible flowers, not the ornamental ones. So the peas were protecting the cucumbers, and then once the cucumbers got big enough, you know, the cucumber beetles were in there, but it really didn't matter at that point. And so having them in a greenhouse also helps, but the cucumber beetles like find stuff very easily anyway. But at least for the first few weeks as they were growing and getting trellised, the cucumbers were able to like grow strong enough and things like that. So companion planting is always fun to do. It's always a challenge, and it's always, to me, very rewarding, because you see like what your plan did and how nature responded to it. So, you know, I actually want to quote my friend Naeem, who works at the Detroit MSU farm, and he often describes urban farming as a silver bullet. And I think that it's been a struggle to just try to convince people like why urban farming is so powerful. But it really is a sort of silver bullet for like our climate issues, our food desert issues, our health issues, our economic issues. You know, I quit my job teaching, and now I'm, you know, making enough money doing tractor work and farming and other things for our family to survive, you know. So a lot of people look at farming and they nod their head, and you know, but for some of us that are brave enough, it is, and if you're brave enough and savvy enough, it is a really difficult but rewarding lifestyle.